Hi everyone, I am Pavit and I am going to share all the data loader settings with you. So the first Salesforce setting that is important is batch size. Batch size is basically a chunk size that data loader will process. Let's say we have 100 record, and if I define batch size is 50, then there will be two chunks. And the maximum limit for batch size is 200. We can set from 1 to 200 as a batch size. The recommendation is 50 to 100, so that if we set one, then it will take more time. So recommended batch size limit is between 50 to 100. That is basically with the SOAP API use. Data loader use SOAP API and bulk API. So with bulk API, the limit is 10k records in as a batch size in data loader. So like if we process large number of record, that may cause the errors as a data operation, and that reason may be because of some automations that we have in our Salesforce. They are not able to handle the bulk records or more records in a single batch. That tends to a CPU time limit or different exceptions that thrown by a automation, and that cause a data rollback for that operation. So if you have lots of automations in your system, then you can upload that data with size 1, but that takes too much time to upload that data. The next option is insert null values. Like if we have null columns in our CSV and we want to import those null values and override on some values. Let's say we have a CSV where 4 columns are there: name, email, fax, and department. Let's say we are taking example of account, and there are two records, and 1 and 2. So two records in the department, the CSV file have null value, and in the actual record one, the value is, let's say, have computer or IT. So if this insert null value checkbox is true and we are uploading that CSV file, then this department value will become null after upload. If this checkbox is false, then the department value will not override by null value. So that is the basic use of that insert null value, and that impacts data if we are not considering that checkbox is true or false. Next is assignment rule. So we can basically add assignment rule ID here, and if we are doing a data operation, then assignment rule will run on that data and assign owner based on the assignment rule criteria and actions. So that is the assignment rule. We can basically assign a assignment rule ID while using import or update the data. Next is the server host. Server host, basically we can set a our domain name. The next important setting is basically timeout, and we are using APIs to do these data operations. So there is a request response mechanism is working. So basically the what is the response time limit that we are setting here? If we do not get any response in that specific time, then that operation will fail. So that is basically the timeout limit. Next is query request size. Query request size is basically used to do the export. That is the batch size to do the export operation by using data loader. So let's say the request size is 500, and then the chunk size of that export will be 500, and based on that chunk size, data loader will export the data. The next settings are Utf-8 encodings. So these are the standards that convert or encode the data from CSV to the machine language, and from machine language to CSV. These are the encoding standard to encode the data. So that mostly used to encode the data. Let's say we have some Chinese language font and some English, some Hindi, Devanagari, these type of font in our data loader, and we can use that encoding standard to encode that data to read the CSV while we are importing, and write that CSV if we are importing or generating success or error file. If we talk about the encoding standard, we have ASCII and Utf-8, Utf-16. So these are the encoding standard. These have different features or mechanism to convert that data from CSV to the byte binary or the machine learning, or from machine learning to CSV. Like while we are exporting any data, then the data loader will write that file. So the encoding standard used to write that file. So we can choose, like if we like to use Utf-8 encoding standard to write that data, and while we are importing to read that data. So that is the basic of these two settings, that we can set our encoding standard by using these configuration settings. Next is use European standard data format. So if you check that rule, the data loader will accept date format in the specific given format. Next is allow field truncate. So let's say we have a field that field size is 255 as a text in our Salesforce, and in CSV, let's say in email we have 1000. Normally email do not have, but just an example, 1000 character data in that cell. And if we are going to import, if that checkbox is true, then data loader will truncate first 255 characters and take that first 255 characters and truncate remaining characters and import first 255 characters in that field. And if the checkbox is false, then data loader will fail that record because of that exception, that that field do not allow more than 255 characters, and we are trying to import 1000 character in this field. So in earlier version of data loader, that checkbox or that setting is not available. Normally data loader automatically truncate those values if data loader found that characters are there out of these field limits. So this is the use of this field. Next is allow Coma as a CSV delimiter. So delimiter, if you edit any CSV file in Notepad, you will find where the delimiter as a separator for column values. And if you like to see in your system, I am showing that for Windows. Even in Mac, you can see those settings are available in Windows. If you go to the region, then additional setting, then list separator is there to define your delimiter for your system. So these are next to like allow Coma as a CSV delimiter and tab as a CSV delimiter. So you can define your delimiter basically, if we have two columns, then that specific character will decide where that column's value will end. So that is delimiter do. Next is use bulk API. Normally your default Salesforce data loader use SOAP based API, and if you like to use bulk API, that provide a parallel processing of mechanism where you can do the database operation as in bulk. Next is enable serial mode for the bulk API. So if you enable that serial mode, let's say in bulk you are processing batch size 1, 2, 3. Let's say 3 batches are there you are processing, then all these 3 will be processed in a parallel way. Like all these 3 are started when you have started with the bulk API. But if you have selected serial mode, then first is first batch, then second. Once the first batch is finished, then second batch is started, then once the second is finished, then third batch will be the started. So these if you enable the serial mode, the batch size queued in a queue to process those batches. So these are the use of bulk API and in enable as a serial mode. Next is upload attachment. So with bulk API also, so I will try to create a separate video how we can upload attachments by using data loader, that I will cover in my next video. The next is time zone. Time zone is a very important settings for data loader, because if we are not knowing that setting very well, that can impact our data. Let's say here we are taking example. Let's say we have exported a data in IST format and our user is in EST date time format. So if you import that data as a EST, then data will be imported as EST and the conversion is not happening there. So if you're adding your time zone in CSV, then that's okay. If no value is specified in the CSV, then that will take the computer or your machine or where data loader is installed, that time zone as a user time zone. If you have entered any incorrect value, then that data loader take as a default a GMT time zone, and that settings basically accept a specific type of format that normally we have in our time zone field in Salesforce, like America, Los Angeles. So we need to specify, if we specified that time zone, then data that we are importing will be stamped as the given or assigned time zone that we have in our data loader settings. So time zone convert that data into the specific user time zone. Like if we talk about in Salesforce time zone, so every user will see that date time or date in their time zone conversion. Let's say I have imported some data in GMT, then user will see that date time in their format, what time zone will be assigned to that user. So time zone assignment is very important setting. So if you assign any time zone here, that time zone will import that data with that time zone. Let's say if you like to import some data from other system, then let's say you have exported that data in EST, then you should specify EST in that time zone field, and if you import that data with that EST time zone, your data will be correct. Let's say you have exported that data in EST and you are importing that data with IST time zone settings from data loader, then date time will be changed and a conversion will happen there and you will not get correct data in Salesforce. Next is the proxy settings. Here proxy settings comes in picture when you are using a VPN for a internet settings, or you are using a VPN. So VPN can proxy your server from different servers. So you can ask these settings or these information from your admin if you are using any proxy server. So if you are failing because of proxy server settings in your data loader, so if you ask your admin and you are using a proxy, you will get that setting and you can add that setting. Next is start at row. That is basically, let's say we have 5 records and these are the number of records in our CSV and we are importing that CSV. When we are importing that from start, we assign that 0. Let's say somehow that batch or that import is failed and 2 records are success, 3, 4, 5, or let's say remaining 3 records are failed. So instead of removing those record and import that file again, we can select that file and we can decide the index or row where we like to start. As in my example, 1 2 3 4 5 I record, 1 2 are processed successfully, 3 4 5 are the error. So to start remaining record with the same file, we can set the start row to in, and we can use the same file. So these are the settings of data loader and the impact on database. If you like a explanation for any other setting, then please comment, and thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you like that video. Thank you very much.